Unconference is one of those in which this is an unconference session where the audience are the speakers. Okay, we'll lock the doors immediately so that people don't bolt out, right? So what we normally do is we have my job is the moderator. That means my job is to give mic and yank the mic out of people's hands if they talk, for a long time. But since we have a small crowd, I think you have a lot of audience here. What the topic we picked is how do you validate product ideas, right? So every startup has this problem. You come up with, even before you think about starting a startup, you say, okay, I have this idea for the business and I have this idea for a startup. So how do we start? So what we do is, there are different techniques for validating. If you have multiple ideas, you want to go choose one or two and then focus on it. If you don't have any ideas, you need to go and find some ways of, pain points and that kind of stuff. But the most important thing is that if you feel that, you have a strong hunch that this is going to work and you want to find out, what is the best way to validate the idea. So what we do is we go around the audience and, pass the mic around. You can tell us what techniques have you used, if you have already, any idea. It could be an idea for a product company. It could be an idea for a service company. How do you make the assumption? We started with an assumption. How do you do that? So who wants to go first? Otherwise.
See, actually I'm a consulting. I run a consulting company and I work with startups. So it would be good to share my experience. What I'm getting to see is mostly there are very good ideas. Not that there's no lack of ideas. Actually, there are a lot of ideas out there in the market, and people really come up with some brilliant ideas. But the hurry to sort of productize those ideas actually is killing the whole business scope. And many times the rush to productize it, take it to the market, and sometimes you manage to win those first few customers, but you're not able to win the 10th and 100th customer. So then that becomes a challenge. The growth becomes a challenge. And very soon in about, let's say the sort of technology adoption life cycle, the idea comes up, it reaches a point and falls off the cliff. And this is something which we've been seeing for the last, let's say 10, 15 years. But today it's far better. New ideas are coming out. Investors are also putting in money. Good part is investors are also putting in money, then they're also validating your idea. That's something which we are getting to see. So the chances of success are also much better. But there is some discipline lacking, and that is something which we need to focus on going forward.
I'll come back to you. Bridge, maybe you're a good person to talk about. So a lot of introduce yourself a little bit and introduce what we're talking about. So how do you validate the product? So a lot of people have this idea. Can I be incubated? Can I be a part of this? So how do you what kind of things do you do for validation? What are the things that you do?
Sure. My name is Bridge Basin. I'm a partner with GSF. That's an early stage accelerator program. We're present in 4 cities, Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore, and Chennai. And I take care of the Bangalore and Chennai centers. So in terms of validating, so one is, validating a business idea. So as a program, as an incubation program, when we look at teams, our primary focus at an early stage is essentially understanding the team. Where do they come from? What's their background? How do they get into this business? What was their motivation behind choosing the industry that they're working in? And where do they see the idea evolving? So in terms of validation, what we really like to see is their path to evolution from the initial germination of the idea to where they're at that moment. So, let's say you've been in this, in whatever industry and business you're working in for the last 9 months. You have a certain sense of the needs in that particular market. There's a specific problem that you're trying to solve. What we really value is the learnings that you're getting from the market. So how many customers have you gone out, potential customers that you've gone out to, had interviews with them, really try to understand what their problems are, And this could be both from a B2B and a B2C standpoint. It doesn't really matter to us in which industry or which sector you're working in, but the ability to go out and reach out to your customer, understand their problem, and then iterate over your existing solution. So, started point A, you understood point B, and then now you're doing C. And as we see that evolution, we become more and more comfortable. Because it's not really, we don't really see a business as a point in time kind of thing. It's all about how it evolves going further. Sure. So in terms of the techniques that we've seen that work really well with our startups is a basic thing like customer interviews. So this is where the lean startup methodology has really made a lot of difference, and they've kind of codified that. So if you take some of the techniques that we try is the business model canvas, which is now part of the whole lean startup methodology, where you identify 6 different areas. Right from the basic problem you're solving, the kind of features and solutions that you plan to build, what are your potential revenue stream, what are the customer segments you'll target, what are the kind of partners that you would bring on board. So there are multiple segments, and then what we really encourage our teams to go out and talk to people. You get out of the building, you hold customer interviews, you get early feedback, you incorporate into those 6 different areas, and then show us how your plan is evolving.
Great, thanks. Okay, so for some of you who have come a little bit later, this is a kind of an unconference session on how do you validate product ideas, right? You could be, running an incubator or an accelerator. You could be a startup. You may be thinking about a startup, what we call as a wanapreneur, but you don't want to jump out till you think this idea is reasonably good because you're taking a big risk. So we're basically sharing ideas on how people come up with, validating product ideas and what kind of experiments do they run. This may be even pre-startup in some cases or early stages of startup. Anybody else wants to go?
So one other idea, after talking to customers, which obviously is the most rich experience, right? You get direct feedback. One of them, what I've seen is folks will just create a web page with the basic value proposition on it, right? It's not a website, as in there's not 10-level nested structures and all that. But they focus on SEO, SEM, just online marketing, to really target who this value prop is appealing to, and they measure conversions, right? And conversions doesn't have to be sign up for a product because the product is not built yet, but this is just capturing an email, right? It's just pre-event stuff, just to get a sense of how many people that are out there. Then look at is the value proposition resonating with, do you know who your targets are? And once you get a better sense of where this is going, you get a almost like a list of people that you can actually call for beta and so on and so forth. It actually seeds it. It's a pre-event, pre-launch planning process.
So that's a good point. And Unbounds and a whole bunch of other tools exist for you to do this. So what do? You try out different pitches. So now you're trying 2 different things, right? One is the message about your product, as well as the product itself. Does it have? Correct. So what do you?
I don't think there's a difference in my mind.
Okay.
Because ultimately, if your messaging does not convey what the product really is, there is going to be a fall off. And what we've seen is you get spoiled by early success, right? You have one customer who is like a chacha-bhatija relationship, right? You know this guy, he's actually using your product, and you get some revenues. Unfortunately, it doesn't stand the test of the market, because while your uncle actually understood your product, the market at large doesn't really get the message. So it's a great way of fine-tuning your message, because it has to scale. Because ultimately, business is about scaling. It's not about, you can't hire fast enough, you can't hire the number of sales guys enough. It has to be more online-driven. It has to be more self-service enabled. That's the only way you're going to penetrate to a large enterprise, because you're not going to hire the expensive sales rep with a Rolodex, right? It comes much later on in your sales cycle. So messaging and product to me are closely integrated.
Great. Yeah. Actually, we should talk more about some of these things. How do you even seed? How do you get the initial set of users? You can pass it on to me. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi. So I have.
Can you introduce yourself?
Certainly will. My name is Murali Krishnan. I've been with eBay for the longest time, for about 8 years. My last role was as country manager of India. I moved on in June to embark on what I'm calling an entrepreneurial adventure. And I'm here to talk about one such idea, give my thoughts on how I'm planning to validate it and actually get feedback. But before that, another very interesting hacky idea on validating a product concept. And this is in the local search space, right? I mean, like just dial, you collate inventory of various local outlets and so on and so forth, web stroke, mobile, enable it and figure out whether you can monetize leads to these people. And people do as simple things like, they know they're going to get very little traffic, so they put a mobile number, but that actually directs to the cell phone of the startup founders themselves, right? It's as simple as that. And you know, if I'm going to get 5 leads a day with 10 retail outlets, then potentially that's the starting point. But that apart, talking about the idea that I'm currently pursuing, for which I'm seeking feedback on how I can validate it, what I'm trying to solve for, and this seems like a massive phrase, is basically for corporate workforce in India to be more healthier. And what is the hypothesis? There are way too many chronic diseases that we face, cardiac, diabetes, and so on and so forth, and all of them are lifestyle, right? We just lead bad lifestyles, unhealthy diet and stress in the workforce, lack of exercise, sedentary lifestyle, you name it. And therein lies the core problem. For an organization, talent is the fundamental bedrock on which they can build million-dollar businesses, but they don't take off the foundation of keeping employees healthy and happy. What I'm trying to figure out is whether we can leverage web and mobile to deliver employee wellness solutions, which are actually fun to engage, right? Make it social, make it competitive, make it like a game so that people actually like participating as opposed to treating as a drudgery or something which is top down. And that is a vague canvas of a solution that I'm trying to paint. Now, how do I plan to validate it? I mean, quite obviously, customer interviews. Go and meet like 50 HR heads and CEOs to see if this actually makes sense, whether they see this will result in a productivity gain. And of course, talk to people, talk to employees, talk to people like you and me that we meet on a daily basis and say, hey, look, if there is a challenge which makes you walk 10,000 steps a day for the next 45 days, and at the end of it, you get something which is meaningful to you, would you do it? Because that is one step forward to a healthier lifestyle. And that's what I intend to do to validate this concept. Would love to get your feedback on other ideas that I could use.
Great. Okay. In fact, you opened up a new avenue for this. So one of the things you can do is, besides sharing your tips, you can also ask the idea that you are trying to validate. And this, this is a self-selected group, right? Of people you came here because you want to be in an Unconference session and you want to talk about it. So we may be able to get some ideas, and this will lead to other conversations outside after we finish that too. So you wanted.
Yeah, so I'm Ashwin, and I have experience building both B2B and B2C products and failing miserably at a lot of them. And this is what I do, or this is what I have learned. Especially for B2B products, the tendency is to go to someone who's more, you know the organization, etc. and so on. It might not be a representative sample. This is an extension of what the other gentleman said. And as far as B2C products are concerned, I think I start with the business, the problem is there. So is the problem significant enough for a big bunch of people for it to go and reach out to? I mean, it might be a logical problem, but do enough people care about it? So I start with a simple keyword, a Google AdWord search tool to see the search volumes for whatever I'm working on or whatever problem I'm talking about to see if enough people care about it. So that's another hack that I do to see just sheer volumes.
Okay.
Just to add on to this, the Batija's thing and your idea of validating the larger market. Validating the larger market is very, very important when you get an idea. And we recommend something called, there are 3 types of companies: a sales-driven company, a technology-driven company, and a market-driven company. A technology-driven company, they build technology, they believe that the world will buy it. The sales-driven company will go to the customer and say, you tell me what you want, I'll do it for you. And the market-driven company is something what you just mentioned. Go validate the larger market, understand what the customer needs. And to also add to your point, you had asked, excuse me, you had a point on this discussion that you have with the customer, right? It's also important to make sure that the cognitive bias of human beings, we have a big challenge on that. The way we frame our questions, it's called the framing bias. There are 12 different cognitive bias. It's a framing bias. So we start asking questions based on what our knowledge is. So it's always better to take some external help, people who are not related to your job at all, and get them to interview your customers and capture that, and instead of talking to 50 customers, talking to 500 customers, and then bringing it back as inputs into the product.
Another thing here, even say in such conferences, and when you're talking to someone else about your idea, as an extension of what he said, the way you put it across makes a lot of difference, because most people who are reaching out to me define the problem that they are trying to solve, etc. So there is a bias which is already entering the system. So my feedback might not be, relevant. It's more like I'm washing my ideas out. So I think you need to think through as to what exactly you're trying to, put towards to people, the other people that you meet in the conferences, and use it as, say, I have 5 different pitches. Let me see which one of them ring a bell. So there's another way of validating, or how to approach this validation question that you're posing.
Okay, so Vivek, you just walked in. Good. So I'm going to give you, please sit down. So we're talking about validating product ideas, and I've known you for a couple of years now. So how do you? You've done this several times before. How do you validate a product idea? You get all these ideas, and how did you pick the one that you are working on right now?
Okay, the unpopular answer is gut feel.
Okay.
But and I actually have figured out how to use data plus gut feel, and I go more with gut feel because gut feel is essentially not some superstitious way of doing things, but gut feel is trusting that your brain can actually process the data much better than you can consciously do that. You will get a lot of data, which will include customer insights during discussions, which will include your mix panel or whatever data showing what customers have been doing on your site. But at the end of the day, to put it all together, you need something that says, this is going to work or not going to, because unless you feel really, really confident in your gut about something, you can't go to the next level. Because if you don't have that confidence, when you do that mini pivot of, okay, this has not been validated, I need to move on to the next thing, you're not going to be able to persuade a lot of people, your stakeholders, which may include your developers, your sales guys. Pivots are always very harmful as a process, because when you change, people get a bit disillusioned. Why is this guy changing his strategy? Why is he doing this, right? And it's because you had access to a whole lot of data that nobody else has access to, because you've been there trying that.
Okay, good. Okay, so couple of things, and before somebody else jumps in. One of the things I found amazingly simple was, of course, a lot of people know about this, is what is called the freemium model, right? First time I built a product, I built it for myself, right? And I don't know whether it's going to be useful for anyone else. So what I did was I just said, I'm going to give it away free and see what happens. What I was looking for is not money, some validation that this is useful for someone other than myself. And I got the initial set of users using a few simple techniques, and this was quite a while ago, so there are much better techniques today available. I simply went and posted in a couple of forums. There was something called beta news, where you can pre-announce products, and you can say, oh, this product is in beta, do you want to come and test it? And then I went to Mozilla forum and said, hey, we have a plugin that will let you track web pages, and are you interested? And people, so within like 3 to 4 months, without doing nothing, I put zero money on marketing. I still thinking about other kinds of things, and we had about 3,000 users using it, and it's a small number. But what is interesting is I suddenly started, the product is something that tracks web pages, and if something changes, it'll send you an alert. And suddenly I saw one guy tracking 5,000 pages. I said, wow, and this is very, very different. So I said, okay, here is an idea. Maybe this guy would pay for it. So what I started doing is I started charging, and the conversion rate was about 10%. And so very early, you not only validate the idea, but you also validate the fact that somebody is willing to pay money for it. Lots of people will use free products, but will they pay actually even a small amount? And keep the amount really, really small, because you're still in the validation phase. And there are other techniques too, which we'll talk about. Anybody else wants to go? Howard?
On that point that you mentioned in terms of pricing and the conversion rate, this was something that we found very useful. So we were building a product, a mobile development software platform, and we intentionally priced the first version at a higher rate than what was typically available in the market. And we didn't. So the freemium was only for when we hadn't released version 1. But once we released version 1, we refused to sell the product for free. So there was no free version of it at all. After you signed up, you get 30 days. If you don't want to use it, it gets locked up. So it was a desktop tool. And the reason was that when the trial expired, people who were serious about it, who wanted to pay, would then give us the right kind of feature suggestions. So in the first 6 months, because you had a gun on your head that, okay, you're at the 29th day and now you have to pay, then you will be forced, as a user, you are forced to say, okay, I will only pay if you give me this one particular feature, which is very important for me to do my job. So pretty soon, even with the first 20 customers, we knew these 20 features that would enable the next 200 to pay for the product. So that's something that we enforced and worked for us.
Cool. Anybody else wants to share? Yeah.
So one really critical point that I think you made, right? Freemium model, if you're a startup, freemium model absolutely sucks. Don't do it because, that's just my personal view. Don't do it because it's great in theory, right, to acquire customers who actually don't pay you and they'll move up and so on. The conversion rate of freemium model is anywhere from 2% to 5%, which means only 2 to 5% of your entire mix actually will pay, and they need to pay large enough to subsidize all of your other costs. So having customers who sign on, who are basically not willing to pay, is not a validation of your product, because ultimately you're in a business to, show some revenues. So unless you're Evernote and you have a ton of investors, I'm sure there's a lot of VCs willing to fund you. You're going after a large market space. Don't do it. You'd rather have a paying customer than the one that's free.
Yeah, he's starting a controversy because he just trashed what I said. So I'm going to pick a fight with him. But that's good because that's what makes it interesting.
The best thing to do is turn it on the head and look at it a little differently. If you had to call this Unconference as, instead of validating product ideas, validating market problems. What he was doing, because that is a problem that he realized. Most of the problems, actually most of the product ideas come from a specific problem that someone has faced personally. Like in your case, there was some challenge for you. You wanted to solve that challenge and knew that the world will also probably have the same challenge, and that worked. Am I right? So it's important to look at it from a market problem perspective. If that problem is there is potential to convert it into to monetize it.
So, but
it's more
agree.
of a validating the market problem. It's just not an idea. So putting an idea out there is fine, but if you have a clear validated market problem, the chances of monetizing is very high.
I think there are a couple of interesting things. I think I kind of agree with you, I kind of disagree with you in two different ways. One is that if I'm certain that this problem exists, then, what you're saying is very true, is that it validates, free things do not validate stuff. A lot of people sign up. But you are not a Google or, you don't even have the reach. So what happened in my case is the 1,000 users I got is some guy looked at the product and then wrote an article that a whole bunch of others read about it, and then that got the next 1,000 users. So I think there are techniques today for monitoring the activity of the people who come and sign up, right? And that gives you an indication of, in my case, the conversion was 10%. Now I don't have a freemium model anymore. I've gone back to the trial because we went back and forth on it. But later maybe realized that maybe we should have kept it as freemium for a couple of things, right? See, there are all these things like there is one of our competitors does this, and I think they've done a fairly good job of it. What they did was, if you're free, your data is going to be on our website. This is like you're tracking all these pages. These are the pages being tracked, and so they suddenly grew into like 450,000 pages website. So they get indexed, they come up on searches. So sometimes, your goal is here and you go like this and then finally get to the goal kind of stuff. But for all of you who came in, we're talking about how do you validate a product idea and try to decide whether you want to take the next step or not. Anybody else wants to talk about it? Yeah.
Quite often, at least in any thought process, when you're thinking of a startup, when you're trying to put together your first pitch deck and so on, this entire notion of the size of the opportunity comes up. And I'm going through the churns of that myself. And I find that slightly funny, right? Because quite often, especially in some innovative areas, there is no existing market, right? Some of these are market creation opportunities, and the entire exercise, whether it's top-down or bottoms-up, more specifically bottoms-up, of trying to estimate a market size is like fourth derivative assumption. right? And 1% delta in your first degree assumption can make like a 20-50% difference in the size of the market. I actually find that pretty funny, right? In such a scenario, I just wanted to check if somebody has a better way of narrowing down on the size of the market. For example, again, and I'm going back to this idea because it's something that I'm in the process of, I looked at what is the size of the corporate group health insurance market, because that's an indication of how much organizations are willing to spend on wellness of employees. That is like 7,000 crores. Now, I don't know whether I take that as any indication of the potential of the market. And therefore, there is this huge confusion in my mind. So we're talking about validating product idea as well as validating the size of the market opportunity. And that's why this question, would love to hear thoughts on that.
Yeah, so hi, my name is Aditya. I work at ClearTrip. I have another question, right? So I think there are two sides of this. One is whether you're working on the right product, right? But in my mind, the equally or probably even more important question is, are you getting the product right? Right? You may have validated the the market fit, and broadly, yes, there is a opportunity there, and there's money to be made there, right? But getting the details right, getting the product right is equally challenging in my estimation, right? The set of features you should be working on, the priority in which you should kind of develop them, etc., right? So I just wanted to sort of broaden that discussion if anyone has experience or yeah.
Go. You were about to say something.
Yeah, just to respond to it, probably a simple thumb rule could be look at the market problem plus the duration. The market problem, validating it thoroughly, plus the duration of the problem. This is a problem that is going to last for 10 years. This is a problem going to last for 1 year. And the volume. This is something which is going to be for 100 people or is going to be for 100 million people. And lastly, the earnings potential. A combination of this is market opportunity. A well understood, defined market problem with the duration well understood. We are very clear about it, doing enough market validation on this, plus the volume, and then the earnings potential. A combination of this should give you a market opportunity. Easy to do it, thumb rule.
On the market size thing, I think the question is, who's the audience? Who are you creating a market sizing for, right? Is it the investors who basically want you to be directionally correct, meaning you're not going after 100 rupee opportunity? They actually want to make sure that there is a significant size. There will be assumptions, and those assumptions are okay, because reality is, what is your revenues right now, right? Maybe zeros, right? So even if it's in $1 billion or more, you probably are going to be okay. So the whole point is to be directionally correct and make the right set of assumptions and not get too hung up on the actual number itself.
It just comes from having run businesses for a very long time.
Yes.
You can torture an Excel sheet to confess whatever if you want.
Correct, but the business that you run probably is more mature, right? So you have IDCs and Gartners actually have numbers, but by definition, a startup is disruptive. So you will, like you said, you don't have numbers, so it's okay.
Okay. So let's try something slightly different. How many of you here in this room are product companies? Okay. Many of you have not spoken. I'm heading directly towards one of you. How did you validate your first product idea? What did you do? I mean, did you start with the idea and used it for building the product? Or did
No, actually, we got the idea from customer itself. We talked to the customer, and from him itself, we got the idea. Then we put a blog. Then, based on the response, we got the idea.
So you started with one customer.
Yeah, first one customer. Then we talked to 2-3 customers. They also said the same thing. Like that, we started.
So you had a business before that. So you had a service business as well.
No, we were doing a product before that.
Okay, another product before that.
In another company.
Okay, okay. All right. Do you want to take?
It's like finding the problem.
Yeah, that's fine. I think we can hear you. Yeah. The mic works. You can keep it a little closer.
It's the finding the problem when I work at Expert Invest, wherein we have a product exclusively to target their market portfolios. When we analyze 5-6 products which are available widely in the market, and we could find out one or the other problem with the existing one. So we collated everything. This is what the customer wants. This is what the customer doesn't want. So combine everything and put a mix, give it in the form of a product.
Okay, and then how did you validate it? How did you know?
So we gave it to the customers.
Okay, so you had a set of customers?
Yes.
Okay.
For my services, I had a set of customers, and they validated. They said, this works. This is what, if not 100%, this serves my 90% purpose. Wherein my competitive products were serving only 50-60% of their purpose. Or they were depending on more than 2 products to get the results.
Okay.
So now they are with me.
Cool.
I mean, I don't charge them because they are already my customers and I'm already charging them a bomb.
Okay.
So this goes as a premium for my existing customers.
Cool. Okay, that's another idea.
Okay, so we were sitting around and thinking about what to do in the education space because we felt that it's a huge market. Can we do something that can bring about some disruption or some change? So we looked at the landscape of the Indian education market, K-12 specifically, and we felt it's very competitive, a lot of people doing a lot of things. We actually tried out all the big players, and Merit Nation from Naukri, EduCom Solution, and all that, subscribed to whatever they had and tried it. And we felt that the quality of what they offered a breadth of offering, and we felt that the quality of what they were offering were not that great. Then we went to 3 different schools in Chennai and picked 11th and 12th students. We talked to both the parents and the students, and we bought them pizza or whatever. We stood outside the school actually, and we said, can we talk to you and all that, and we brought them in, and we took them to Pizza Hut. I don't know if it's legal taking students to Pizza Hut. I might raise eyebrows, but we did that. So we did that, and we did a round table and asked them, what do you do, how do you study, what are your challenges, and all that. And we distilled it down to this is what we will build. At the end of the day, it doesn't look too different from what is out there because ultimately students have similar needs. They're saying, okay, we want to, I'm going for tuition. I don't want to spend 3 hours going for tuition. I can cut down travel time if this was available. I don't want to watch videos, so don't bother doing videos of instruction because if I paid attention in the class first time, then I don't have to spend 1 more hour at home watching the same video. So they said ultimately what it boiled down to them was practice. We need to practice. We need a place where the night before the exam, I don't know where to go for a doubt. I don't know who to call. Can somebody solve a problem the weekend before the homework is due, the night before the exam? So we said, okay, we took that as a feedback. What is it that we can offer? So we did that essentially, that exercise. Now, the problem is that we built what it maybe goes to getting the product right versus are you building the right product, right? So we thought, okay, this is a set of features that they all want, and we went ahead and built it. And without any marketing or anything, we are getting a lot of people who are coming and looking at our website and looking at our service, but they're not converting into registered users or paid customers for us. So we removed the paid part of it. We always said we are going to charge you at some point, but right now it's free for a limited time or whatever, right? We wouldn't say how much we would charge you and all that. So people started using it and people are using it. Now we have come up with a business model where we also develop content in addition to a platform where you can come take unlimited practice tests, and there is a Q&A forum where we provide you unlimited support if you are stuck in a problem. It could be as simple as I'm stuck at page 365, problem number 12 of CBSE textbook, and somebody help me, will solve you. Or if you say I'm doing a project on rockets, I don't know where to start, we'll say look at this Wikipedia video, look at Khan Academy, look at this YouTube video, and go ahead, right? We do all of that. So now we are stuck at how do we grow from here to getting to 10,000 users, 20,000 users. The problem that we have now is how do we, a marketing problem. Now we have seemed to have built that something that certain users want, and we have 1,000 users. Some of them have given us feedback, and this is a market that isn't really giving us a lot of feedback. We have done Survey Monkeys, we have done MailChimp newsletters, and we have asked them for feedback. They haven't really given us a lot of feedback. So unfortunately or fortunately, maybe we're doing something wrong there. I would love for ideas on how do you, now that you have a customer base of 1,000 or 2,000 people, how do you get feedback on what works, what doesn't work, and all that from them. The biggest problem we are facing right now is how do we scale up and go to 10,000 registered users, 20,000 registered users. That's a problem that we have. But in terms of market validation, going back, we thought education is a big problem. We felt we can make a change with we downloaded all the product, who we thought as competitors. We went and tried everybody. And then we made a list of these are the areas where we think that they lack. These are things that they do well. Then we went and actually
talked to the students who would be our end customers and said, what is it that you like, don't like, how can we improve? And then that formed our initial product feature list. So that's how we kind of validated. Sorry, we talked for a long time.
Hello. It was kind of new, and we got a lot of interest from media about that. And there was a lot of inbound interest from companies. And then we kind of started working with this one company and started building a product with them, which was completely different. It ended up completely different than what we started out with. And now the good thing is that that product is kind of sellable to other companies. So that's how we validated the market, kind of. Gaze metrics, not case metrics. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Venkatesh. I'm from Cabot Solutions in Cochin. I've been wanting to meet Dorai for some time, so that's why I'm here. Anyway, our company, Cabot Solutions, started us as a services company, IT services, and we later on ventured into the product space. Basically, like what Gaze Metrics Saurabh said, we worked with the customer to building a product for them, and we ended up owning that product. And so we are now, the product is being used in the US market, and we are trying to get it into the Indian market. Now, I have a couple of challenges ahead of me. One thing is that the product needs to be a little bit tailored for the Indian market, so I'm just trying to talk to a few people on what is the specific Indian needs. And secondly, pricing. The US model pricing is very different from the Indian model of pricing. So that's what we are trying to figure out. So how do you price it in the Indian market? It's an online SaaS-based video interview pre-screening tool. It could be very useful for recruiters, and especially in India where there's lots of interviews happening and all those things. It's a good pre-screening tool. But then how do you price it right so that people use it? We also don't have a free trial version right now. But so that's what I was trying to get from the few discussions over here. When I entered, I heard, I'm sorry, I didn't get your name, but you were talking about don't give anything free. So I'm just skeptical about that now. So I'm just trying to form an opinion about that. He did it just to. Okay. So anyway, so that's our thing. So I'm just looking forward to more ideas on Indian products and pricing, and so how do we do that? So thank you.
Hi, my name is Ankit. I work with Flipkart. Just to give a quick intro. So I'm currently in that entrepreneurial stage, but I want to discuss how I visualize this product validation. So first and foremost, I think I have to be the closest customer, or I have to mock being the closest customer to my product, so that I understand it totally. But again, one point which we discussed briefly, but I think I should want to stress on that, is that while I want to validate my product vis-a-vis how my customers would want it, I definitely want to tell my product in the language that they would understand, and in the language which I would be using as a part of my marketing in future as well. So sometimes I find my friends trying to reach out to potential customers, or while in the validation stage, in a very raw way. They don't sell the concepts, they don't sell the experience, they just try to talk about the product. That's where probably a lot of potential big companies just hang in the middle. They don't go through the way, and they kind of take a backseat overall. So I see that as a very important medium for your discussion to your potential customers or people who can validate your product. Talk the language that you are going to use while you market that product. Probably that's how, just a cliche, but that's how probably Apple used it in tits and bits to reach out to their customers. Not all at once, because sometimes all at once, like Google Glass probably can just scare a few people. But talk in a structured way, talk in the way that you would want to talk in future. Probably. Just a thought.
I think that struck a note somewhere because I've been, reading, discussing this lean startup method and how you go about validating each and every hypothesis along your journey of building a product. Because if you talk about validating a product idea, it's actually a set of different things that you validate. You validate growth, you validate engagement, you validate ability to, the customer's propensity to pay for your product and all of that. But I think the key thing that we as Indians miss when we build products is sharing the vision. And that's the one thing. So I just came back from the US, and if there's one takeaway from that entire trip to the Valley, and the one lecture I got a number of times from people was, with Indian entrepreneurs especially, is that we don't focus on validating the vision. And validation of vision is basically this: you put it out there, and you put it out there in a way that makes sense for the largest number of your potential users to understand what your product is about. And then you get something back. And if you don't, there's obviously either something wrong with the way you've positioned your vision or the way you've described your product. And you keep fine-tuning that till it resonates with a lot of people. That's one thing we forget. We get on to building the product without doing that thing in the beginning.
Okay, so I was more interested in listening to everybody out here, considering I'm probably third year engineering and still getting into this mode. So I absolutely agree with what you said, because that is, I think, something that we were developing in college, and we decided to go out and test it. And it was based on a problem that we were trying to solve that our parents had faced or things like that. So so first we tried going out and talking to people based on, look, this is what we are doing and what are your opinions on it, kind of thing. And that didn't work as well as us telling them, look, this is a problem that so-and-so faced, and this is how we're trying to solve it. And immediately you could see the click of association happening. And the minute that happened, they were more than willing to help us out in terms of trying to give us feedback. And I think that solves a lot of feedback issues as well, because the minute the person associates with what you're trying to do, and they feel that there's an inherent gain somewhere for either them or someone they associate with, it automatically becomes easier to try and validate your product idea. And for us, it was something to do with healthcare. So that becomes all the more challenging, because very few people are willing to, give their believe in a product that's going to solve a certain issue for them, as opposed to, say, a doctor or a technician doing it. So if you're trying to automate a process that is inherently run by a technician, you have to build that faith with your customer base before you end up into trying to do something.
So Rajesh, I just want to, and then I'll kind of try to summarize. See, you started several companies, and so how did you go about doing the product validation and stuff like that?
So the latest company is called Witty Parrots. We started about 19 months ago. There were two co-founders, myself and Anil. We had a paper napkin idea and everything. From that day onwards, we decided to do one thing. Every single day, both of us have to give one demo each. That's the whole idea. In 19 months, we gave 650 demos. So the only thing is we give a demo, and then we were looking for only one response. Somebody has to miss our product in their past. What does that mean? So you take an iPhone, and then you will say, man, when I was growing up, this iPhone was not, I wish it was there before. You look at Kindle, and you will say, earlier I used to have stack of books. I wish I had this during my college days. So the real need, if it is a really good solving a real problem, people will miss it in their past. And how do we know it? They start telling us. You just listen to them and say, I could have used this here, I could have used this, not I will use it. The language has to be, I could have used it. In my last company I could have used it. Last month I could have used it. If more and more people start missing in the past, then you know that you got a winner. So doing these demos every single day, it should become like a discipline. And many times people tell me, but you are giving away your idea. I always tell them, if they can execute it better, more power to them, right? It's everything is in the power of execution. So once we start giving demos, there are side benefits to this. Of the 650 demos that we gave, probably we got 100 leads. So they keep asking us, so what, did you do anything with that idea? You told about it, what's the progress? So you almost do business development. You start product validation, but you add a pipeline to your business development.
Cool.